You got the COVID?
Good afternoon, welcome to Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors, regular board meeting, October 25th, 2023. Roll call, please, Kai.
Director Hannah,
Here via Zoom.
Director Cheryl. Oh.
Excuse me, Kai, just note the public that Director Hannah has just caused not to be here in person. Please continue.
Yes. I heard here from Director Cheryl, Director McKimmey,
Here.
Vice President Cockrell,
Here.
and President Burke.
Here. Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have any members of the public who would like to speak on any relevant matters that are before the board this evening that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment section. Do I have a motion on the consent calendar? Mr. Director McKinney has recused himself from voting on the consent calendar.
Yes.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Moved,
Seconded.
moved and seconded. Any comments? Roll call, please. Kai.
Director Hannah.
He's recused.
Oh,
No.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Director Cheryl.
Yes.
I believe Director McKimmey is recused. Is that right?
Correct.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. And Vice President Cockrell
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 6, continuing business, the second reading of an ordinance setting fees for services. Chief Cox.
Thank you. This is the second reading for the increase of the credit card transaction fee that is used for our online billing through the fire marshal's office. This is literally just increasing the processing fee from 2.9% plus a 30-cent transaction to 3.3% for the 30-cent transaction.
Thank you, Chief. I open the meeting for public comment on the intended recommendation to approve the second reading of the ordinance. Do you have any member of the public who would like to speak? Hearing none, I'll close the public meeting. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-03?
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion. Pretty straightforward. There isn't discussed at previous meetings and so forth, so there's nothing hidden in this thing. With that, roll call, please, Kai.
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Director Cheryl.
Yes.
Director McKimmey.
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes. Moving on to new business, review, discuss, and approve surplus of equipment, Chief Cox.
Thank you. With the new vehicles that we have in service now, we have the second Type 1 engine ready for surplus. Our plan is to auction that directly from the district and not use a third party this time. Captain Mingstein is confident that he can do just as good a job auctioning the item than using a third party. And then secondarily, we have a 2008 Dodge Ram pickup that was the old utility 44 that we have had a request from a volunteer, Washington Volunteer Fire Department, to make a donation to them of that old vehicle.
Washington, California.
Correct.
Okay. So does that require a board vote and approvals?
That does, both these items require a surplus, a vote to make these items available for.
I'll make a motion to surplus both the items that Chief Cox described.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any discussion? Oh, I just out of curiosity, how did we ever get to Washington, California?
Yeah, so this department has an individual who used to work for CAL FIRE, who is now the chief there as a volunteer. They have a budget, I believe, of less than $15,000 a year to provide fire protection. So they depend almost solely on donations, and their current vehicle that they have is almost irreparable and looking for
I think it's wonderful, but I don't know how many of you have been to Washington, California, but it's hard to find. I've been there. Well, that's great. I'm sorry, did we vote on that?
Yeah, I spent a couple of weeks there. We need to.
We didn't do that. Can we have a roll call, please, Kai?
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Director Cheryl.
Yes.
Director McKimmey.
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes. Moving on to new business, item D, review, discuss, and approve resolution authorizing fire chief to execute an agreement for a ground lease with Launch Beach Property LLC for temporary fire station quality pool location. Chief Cox.
Thank you, and I'll tag team this one with Chief Silva and Kai. This is really the giving permission to the fire chief contingent on approval of permits for construction from the county to lease the property for the temporary fire station 44. This process, and maybe I'll hand over to you, Gary, has been going on for probably 6+ months.
Yeah, 6 months, and now it's in the county's planning department's preview, they have it, and they're trying to look further into the future and see if we really have to go through the coastal commission and all the other stuff, because it is temporary, so they're in the process of trying to see what kind of exemptions they can do for us before we actually pull the permit, so we're hoping we could be exempt from everything, because it is temporary, we're just waiting for feedback from them.
Thanks. The contract, I believe, Gary, is a 3-year contract?
3-year contract.
3-year contract. We would hope to initiate it as soon as we get an answer back from the planning department on any necessary permits. The idea is to go into lease as soon as possible to get the facility to a point where we can move in so that when groundbreaking occurs. Our target is still Q3 of 24 for the groundbreaking of the new Station 44. There is obviously the permitting process that is going to involve the county and potentially a coastal development permit, depending on what the findings are of the planning department. So again, this resolution is to authorize the chief to execute a 3-year agreement contingent upon the permitting being approved for a temporary facility location.
Chief, summarize for us what will be located at the temporary.
So we're looking at leasing a 24/60 modular type home. Other facilities, other fire departments have used those, so it's like a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, office space, living space for the firefighters to live in. And then we're gonna put a temporary shop facility of some sort, probably 40 foot by 30 foot or so, shop, so the engines don't get destroyed in that time frame. And then we're hoping that we can move that shop facility maybe over here to house the fan prop and stuff like that after we're done utilizing it. So we're hoping it can be that type of facility to use in the 24/60 housing. As soon as we're done with it, the company who leases it to it, they just come pick it up and drive off with it. We may have to lease a generator to be there as well, or if the power goes out, that place has a generator. So we don't want to purchase a generator to send down there, so probably one of the larger generators that are on the trailers.
Yeah.
They would be kind of plumbed into that, so that way that's just a full service fire station facility for 3 years, and then can all be removed.
And we talked about a tent for workout equipment, maybe with a plywood floor.
Yeah, we were thinking, depending on the size of the shop, that we could probably make the shop big enough to where the engine's in the front, and then we can put some sort of
Okay.
temporary flooring and maybe their workout equipment in that shed temporarily, maybe the treadmill and other stuff could go in the facility that they're living in, so it's big enough, and then most of the workout equipment could be in where the shed's at.
Okay. And some kind of walkway so they don't have to scamper in
Yeah,
their socks in the
Yeah.
wet mud.
yeah, it's definitely gonna be, not gonna be ideal.
Right.
But I think they see the big picture of the future, they're gonna bring the fire station, so they understand.
And when we vacate this, and move into new Station 44, will anything be left on the temporary property?
The only thing we talked with Joe about, the landowner, is, it would be up to his decision, but we're gonna have to put some road base, crushed rock or something down temporarily, so the engines don't sink in the mud in the winter. And they have that, so he said he would probably want that to stay if we didn't come do anything with it, but other than that, everything else will be removed.
Thank you.
The water connections, we put those in, they serve our facility for 3 years, and then do they stay?
The,
The utilities?
originally they were not going to, and then the last conversation I had with the water district, so they'd probably just cap it and it would stay, so that landowner could actually utilize that for his future developments. So it's a benefit to the landowner as well.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 2023-48?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Connie.
Director Hannah,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes,
Director McKimmy,
Yes,
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes,
President Burke.
Yes. Thank you. Chief Silva, nice job.
Thank you.
Going on to item C, review, discuss, and approve resolution authorizing the fire chief to execute an operator restroom access license agreement with Samtrans. Chief Cox.
Thank you, and I apologize for the lack of the staff report on this one.
is there any paperwork for this at all?
There was a contract that was put in the box, at the beginning of the week.
Let me go. No, I want my own.
can you get mine too?
I'll be right back.
So
Were you?
I just read this and I went, what the heck? So I started looking for minutes.
I didn't know.
We don't do
Wanted
minutes
to make sure
anymore?
you're Megan, right?
Oh, we do.
I was gonna look and see, because I was gone.
Chief
Yeah, yeah.
Cox.
Oh,
Megan
my
from
God.
Samtrans
Oh,
is
perfect.
here.
Thank you, Megan.
If you get, Megan from Samtrans is here, if you guys would like her to speak on it, or.
Happy to give a quick verbal overview.
Sure, let me tee it up and then I'll hand it over to you as soon as JV gets back.
That's probably easier, let them explain. and you
She's
guys-
not gonna like what I have to say. I'll wait for JB to get back.
Yeah, please, let's wait. Perhaps you might like to join us at the table.
Oh, okay.
We don't have a.
The table.
Excellent. So, we were approached by Samtrans, several weeks ago, regarding a potential restroom license agreement. This is, an agreement where Samtrans would compensate the district. I believe it's $700 a month for the use of after-hours access for their drivers for the bathroom here in the Station 40 administrative side. They would, pay for the installation of a key card system, for security purposes on the front door. It would allow their drivers during after hours when they're taking their break in front of this facility, to have access to a restroom. With that, I'll pass it over to you.
That was a wonderful summary. Thank you. Hi, Megan LaRoque. I'm in the real estate department at San Mateo County Transit District, also known as Samtrans. As you know, it is very important for us to provide bus service to the coastside residents and citizens. And the more service we're able to provide, the more people are able to get to their jobs, their medical appointments, see their friends. It's just so important to keep that connection. So one of the big issues with our drivers, I'm not sure if you know, but it's a global issue. There is an operator retention issue. It's not just us, it's everybody from bus drivers to truck drivers, shuttle drivers. One of the things we noticed in our feedback, or what we heard in our feedback while reaching out to operators was, what is the hardest part of your job? Besides, sitting on a bus all day, and it was, hey, we don't really have access to restrooms, which is difficult for some of us to imagine who may not have been in that position. So if someone at Samtrans' big projects right now, we're working very hard and we're having and willing to compensate for the exclusive, not exclusive, but the access. We want to make sure that our operators have regular, consistent access to restrooms at the end of their routes. So when we ask for operator restroom at this location, we are not talking all 200 plus of our operators. We're talking about the coastside operators, less than 20 at this point, and maybe a few base supervisors. So if you guys were to approve this, it would make a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. As Deputy Cox said, we would compensate you $700 a month. In exchange, all we ask is that you keep the facility stocked and clean.
The question I would have is, it's a security issue. And I've been led to believe, but let me back up. Right now, on a normal day, like today, if someone came in at 2:30 and they had the bus over there, they would go ahead and use the facility as it is today. And anyone could come in and do that, who knew that we were there, okay? And so this would be only for like after hours and weekends. Okay. And then
24-hour access.
it would take a card key, which requires a slight modification to the front door, if I got that right?
Yes, and then we will work with you to determine the best location for that, so we don't interrupt any work or flow of your public or staff.
Well, the concern I think we would have would be if it was on a Saturday, Sunday, and somehow the door was not properly closed. And that would be a big issue.
Sure, sure.
And so I haven't quite made up my mind yet, but it seems to me that if we do this, if we execute this agreement, and if ever security becomes an issue, I think the agreement would be null and void
Okay,
at
yes.
that point.
Termination, rights on both sides are very fair and equal. Should at any point you determine you're unhappy with this arrangement, give us a 30 days notice and we can see the agreement.
It's already there, okay.
Although we hope that won't happen. Being in transportation, safety and security is one of our biggest issues. And we do have some or one of our biggest, top of mind concerns for everybody, our citizens, people we work with, our operators, staff such as myself. So, we also have currently other existing agreements. Our staff is trained to, be sure you secure it before you leave, just in case, because, we all live in today's world and have seen some access issues, but us personally, we watch it very closely. We only give badge access to those who require it. And if somebody is for some reason terminated from employment or chooses to leave on their own will, we will deactivate that badge so they no longer have access. And should we ever determine a badge is lost or stolen, we work very quickly with our safety and security team to get those replaced in a very timely manner.
So without me reading through this, I'm sure it's going to refresh my memory exactly, this would be the chief. What part of the station would they have, or the building would have access to?
Yeah, so they'd have access to the front door here,
Right?
and that would give them access to the restrooms.
Mhm.
They would not have access to the administrative building that's locked at night and on the weekends,
Okay.
as well as the training office.
Yes,
So everything that's unsecure, which is this room and the kitchen, and the bathroom would be available for that person to technically have access to, although it's the intent is for the restroom.
well, it would seem to me that if somebody was using this, he probably wanted to maybe sit down for a couple of minutes, I mean.
That'd be a nice little break, yeah.
I'm talking about the toilet, I'm talking about.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay.
So there's you house the bus or bus barn, so to speak, above Andrini's currently?
so where they stop, where the end of their line is
Yes.
currently?
Yeah.
It's around, what is the road that crosses up here? Not Main Street, it's another side road,
Kelly or,
Monterey.
um,
It is within a very close walking distance to here, right down the road, not far at all. If you're talking about our main bus, our primary bus depots.
Yes,
Oh, but we have our north base and south base, and those are in South San Francisco and Redwood City.
how come I see the buses coming out all the time by Andrini's?
I think that's just the end of the lines that we serve here. That's a good stopping point, for the areas that we need to serve and shopping centers, community apartments and stuff like that.
So a lot of times if you observe, they're here in the evenings, sitting for 20 minutes for the bus is out of service. And they're just sitting in their bus, and sometimes if we're around, they'll knock on the door, ask if they can use
Right.
the restroom. But a lot of times they're just parked here,
I know they stage here for like 30 minutes in the
yeah, they're
morning.
taking their breaks.
so do they drive from the bus depot over here with the bus to do their route?
Yes, our buses come out of the primary two depots, and then our MV Transit, who we contract out to operate some of our buses. They're based out of San Francisco and Redwood City as well. So yes, all the buses start very early in the morning at one of our two bases, and they end very late at night at one of the other ones, probably around 2 to 3 a.m. from the people who serve this area.
Megan, what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is we're looking at temporary standalone, almost portables, would you say? We don't like that as an alternative. We prefer to work with private owners and community members to get access.
Is there a similar arrangements that the San Francisco has with other organizations?
Yes, we do. We have a currently existing one with another private entity, Shell gas station with their private owner over Airport in Linden. We have two with San Francisco Muni for us to use their restrooms at like the BART station over in Daly City. over by SFSU, there's some, portable restrooms that me and me have installed that we're, licensing out and paying access to. So yes, we have multiple agreements existing, but we hope to increase that. And this would be our first coastside one, and we would very much like coastside service. So we are in talks with other parties as
One
well.
of the things for the boards too, just to realize, we have cameras in that whole lobby area, so we'll see, and we can go back if there was ever any issues to see anything that happened during any time of the day or any hour, something seemed in disarray, the next day we pull the cameras up, and obviously if it was a problem, we'd contact if it was a bus driver issue or something else, and I would say with our front doors, that's probably a security issue for us regardless, so we need to make sure those are self-closing. Even for ourselves, regardless of the agreement with them, we need to make sure those have strong enough shock so that they're shutting on their own, no matter who leaves or comes.
Because one hangs up.
Yeah, so that's probably something we need to address regardless, just to make sure those are shutting.
So I have issue with, we're spending a lot of money to secure this whole facility and to, no offense. And I feel for the guys, but it's not up to the fire department to provide facilities for Samtrans. And like I said, we're spending a lot of money to secure this facility, and it kind of rubs me, not the wrong way, but to open it up to not, I mean, they're not strangers and they're here providing a service for the coast, and I get that, but it's not up to us to provide that. That's just my one opinion.
You know, Bruce, I mean,
Please.
it's not, I'm not, jumping up and down, leading a charge to do this. But on the other hand, to be to provide a good community service, it seems to me that, so somebody comes in and the security is a deal, they steal coffee. I mean, there's nothing that expensive or valuable that they could go, and I think that is a very remote thing. My position is that, it isn't something that, as I said, I'd leave the charge to you and make an initiative of, but, when you gotta go, you gotta go. And
I get that.
And I would support it, particularly we can see how this thing works, and if we do have any problems, we would cancel. That's what it is, and I would look to the chief and others to ensure that, that our standards are being met and nothing's being destroyed or misused and so forth. And they all obviously be responsible that would happen.
Absolutely, there's no long-term commitment on your part for this at all.
Yeah, and when I spoke with Megan also, I discussed that it would only be for the bus drivers, like there's no passengers, no other people.
Oh, yeah, good point.
It's only
Good point.
the bus drivers.
Even if I'm in the area hanging out down on Main Street, I wouldn't come over here after, I wouldn't even have an access badge, so. That, it would really only be for select few operators, the ones who primarily operate these routes.
Can I ask a question? Can you guys hear me?
Cynthia, any?
No, sir. I am for it.
President Burke?
Patrick?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
A couple of questions. One, you said 24-hour access. So are they running buses and would use the facilities at any time of the day and night?
They do pull into the bases around 2 to 3 a.m. and then there's a gap maybe between 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 a.m. depending on the day. So it wouldn't exactly be 24 hours, but very close to it.
And then another thought was in regards to the badging in and out it would be a new system that would be installed. Maybe there's a way that the system tracks when the person badges in and badges, I guess, out. Because then we would at least know they're not in the building for an exorbitant amount of time or something that seemed odd.
Okay, I could, that sounds like a fairly standard feature of badges. I can ask and make sure that that's doable.
Sure. And then on the door, Chief Silva mentioned, it needs to shut itself. Well, I'm sure there's also a way to make sure that it tracks that the door opened and then the door actually properly closed. I know I have that at my house even, right? So I'm sure there's a way to do that, but I don't know.
Okay. Further comment?
Patrick, I like the way you're thinking with the track the badge in and out. And then also, sensor to make sure that door is.
Sure.
That'd
Yeah,
be a
sorry.
good thing.
Apologies for being on Zoom today. I'm a little under the weather.
I think most of those, because we have that type of, we don't have badging at our Felton headquarters, but we have a keypad one that all you have to do is pull the computer up, you can tell who's the last person in there.
Sure.
And all that stuff. I don't know if you can tell when they left, but you can tell when the door opened and closed. I think the county facilities that we have with those badges, they 100% have tracking of almost when you're coming and going, so I think it'll be the same way, I imagine.
Okay, feel better.
You'd like a badge in, badge out.
Yes.
system.
I
Okay.
make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-49 with the provisions as dictated by Director Hannah that we could track in and out and also door closings.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Roll call, please, Connie.
Director Hannah,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes,
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes,
President Burke.
Yes.
just, this is a departure from anything we've done in the past.
Yes.
And so I think we used to have an expression amongst pilots, I think, I'm a retired pilot. And I used to tell people, there's no deal so good that a pilot can't screw it up. And I would impress upon the drivers that this is kind of like it's a departure from anything we've done before. And so if they could be gender pilots and screw it up, and then we would cancel the whole thing, and the drivers would have to do their stuff wherever they do their stuff.
I hope one person will not mess that up for everybody.
Okay.
Sometimes happen. No, that would, we have a very strict code of conduct.
Well,
These people,
the
these
public
are
witnesses-
their jobs, they go through training
the public witnessed something just recently which may cause the taking away of the jump seat to all pilots.
Ah,
So,
Oh, yeah.
that's the kind of thing I thought. Okay, thank you so much.
Now that
Thank
we've
you.
accommodated Samtrans, I'm sure the county will be very helpful to us and other things that we have done.
Oh, yeah.
well, you have a
Okay.
friend on the
We will
inside
count on
now.
that. All right,
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you very much for it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on,
Thank you. Thanks for answering the
moving
question.
on. Item D, review and discuss proposed updated fee schedules. Chief Bond.
Thank you. This is the culmination of the work that's been done by Matrix and specifically for Dominic Courtney from Matrix regarding the fee study that the district has endeavored to update. To kind of set the scene here, the district charges for certain services that are utilized by the public. I'll give you an example. Someone is building a home, they submit a set of plans. The district charges a fee for that service to review the plans and conduct the inspections. The fee schedule right now is fairly narrow. It doesn't include everything that we do. And it hasn't been updated in more than 3 years. So what Courtney's done is she's gone deep into all the services that the district provides. She's here to give a presentation about what this study has found. And really at the end of this, we are looking for some recommendations from the board, specifically around policy of what the board's policy is on the amount that we seek to reimburse for our services that we provide. With that, and not to get too technical, I'll hand it over to Courtney.
Maybe you could also, if you'd like to stand or bring a chair, whatever you'd
I
like.
can consider the table or I
All
can
right,
stand in the,
whatever.
how official do you want it?
Let me set you up here.
Make yourself comfortable.
Yeah. important. And I'm sorry, your name again, please?
My name is Courtney Ramos.
Courtney?
Courtney.
Courtney, thank you.
All right, and I think.
Okay, this is okay, right?
Yeah, click this forward button here. I think this is the next one.
Well, good afternoon, almost.
Close.
As I mentioned, my name is Courtney Ramos. I am with Matrix Consulting Group. And we worked closely with the deputy chief and with Pat, and some of the other fire prevention guys to take a look at what is your cost of service. So what I wanted to do this afternoon here is to kind of give you an overview of what we did during that study. And talk about the results and the next steps of that. Excuse me. So just quick agenda, right? To, like I said, give a background on why you would do these studies, the methodology, the results, and then walk you through some of those options that you have from a policy and decision making perspective. So it's really unknown when the district did a last, intensive fee study. But it is a best practice according to the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA for short, to do studies like this every 3 to 5 years. You want to take a look at what your cost of service is. They give that time frame because a lot of things can happen in 3 to 5 years, certainly specific to fire with code changes. Just look at where we've come since the pandemic with technology changes. So really taking a look at what does it cost you to provide those services and make sure that they're in alignment. And one of the reasons that we also want to do that is because we have some rules and regulations in California that say that we can't charge more for service. We want to make sure that we're in compliance with that. What we looked at through this study was things like fire and life safety reviews, sprinklers, alarms, occupancy permits, and the like. So we didn't so much look at, what it costs for you guys to go out and respond to a fire. That's more the suppression side of services. We're looking at those services where somebody's coming to you because they need a permit, right? You file that application, you need to get your approval, either one time or annually for those services. We also did conduct a comparative survey. We took a look at some other jurisdictions who are, similarly located, with a coastal presence, with a large district, or just, in the area, to see what they charge for similar type services, just so that you can understand, what is the cost that is out there. Also, as I go through this, if anybody has questions or wants to stop me before you get to the end, please let me know. So the objectives of the study, we first start with the fee structure. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, the current fee structure is really a bit simplistic. So taking a look at it and saying, does it represent the services that you're providing? And how can we make it better represent those services so that applicants understand it, but also so that those who are charged with administering it also understand how to apply those fees. We collect average time assumptions. This is not a time and motion study. We didn't sit next to staff with a stopwatch while they drove around and did inspections or reviewed plans. We're relying on their expertise, as well as our expertise in working with other fire districts and other fire departments to evaluate whether or not those, the number of plan reviews or the time for plan review or the length of an inspection makes sense. We developed fully burdened hourly rates. So we don't just look at the salary and benefits of the guys who are actually reviewing the plans or doing the inspections, but also taking a look at departmental operating expenditures and stencils, fuel, cars, as well as administrative staff who are supporting that, chief, the deputy chief, that supervisory support. Like I said, we did a comparative survey to kind of benchmark it. I do like to throw the caveat out with that because we don't always know what other jurisdictions' cost recovery policies are. So the fee that they charge for the service is not indicative or representative always of full cost recovery. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important that we comply with Prop 218 and 26. Again, that says that you can't charge more for a service than it costs you to provide that service. Otherwise, it's considered a tax. There are a couple things that we did look at in this that are exempt from that, something like false alarm responses. The penalty, it's not a fee. You don't pay it unless you accidentally set off an alarm. And even then, for your code, you get so many free within a year. So it's really important to make sure that our fees don't exceed the cost of service. And again, part of the reason of wanting to check in every so many years to make sure that our costs haven't exceeded that. And then finally, to provide you with an updated structure and recommendations and options for increasing your fee. So again, providing that end product of a schedule that can be put out to the public. So a fee study is not rocket science. It is pretty much rate times time equals cost. When we look at the staff time to provide the service, like I said, it wasn't a stopwatch, but it is taking a look at average time. So what we want to do is say, not the simplest application you've ever had to process, not the most complex, but what do we typically see coming through the door for every type of process that we're talking about? So whether it's sprinklers or alarms, fire safety or operational permits, what's the average amount of time that takes? Also taking a look at standard travel times if we're talking about inspections. We have a big district here, not so much big, but we don't have a lot of wide roads. So it takes us a little while to get places. So making sure that we're accounting for that when we're thinking about everywhere that we need to get to within the district. we take a look at that and we take, we don't wanna say, we don't wanna give everybody, too much of the benefit of the doubt. If standard is 3 inspections, we might throw in a 4th inspection because nobody's perfect. But we don't wanna set our level of service at 5 or 6 inspections. We also don't wanna assume that everybody's gonna get it right first time. We're dealing with averages. That also helps us when we're applying our fee schedule. We don't have to constantly go back to applicants to get additional funding for things. We have to track our time. We're able to set an average fee for that service. The fully burdened hourly rate, like I said, includes, those indirect costs. We also take a look at available hours. So we're accounting for the fact that, we don't work 2,080 hours a year. We get holidays, we get vacation, we get leave. So reducing that so that we are able to recover for the costs of those employees. And then what that does is it essentially provides us with that full cost, which is the ceiling. For 218 and 26, it lets us know this is the maximum fee that we can charge. So when we talk about the fee structure, some of the modifications that we made, as I mentioned earlier, fee schedule is a little simplistic. There were a lot of kind of catch-all areas. So what we did is we worked with staff to break that out so that we could make it a little less, oh, we just kind of throw this in this bucket or this in this bucket. So we broke out categories for sprinklers, automatic extinguishing systems, and fire alarms. Broke it out into plan review and inspection. So to kind of separate that process. So as an applicant, rather than coming in and paying for everything all at once, I can pay for my plan review when I submit my plans. Once those are approved, then I'm actually ready to to build or to, for that second part of that inspection, and I can come in and pay those inspection fees. So it does kind of help sometimes the applicant in being able to split that up. We also looked at the fire alarm fees and expanded that to the new alarms and existing alarms. The level of service that is needed for something that's already there is different than if I'm building something brand new. So making sure that we can distinguish that. So again, so we're not using one fee to blanket everything. We're really calling out those different services and those service types to provide differentiation in that cost of service. We also added new fees to account for services relating to solar systems. So the electric vehicle charging stations and things like that that we're starting to see everywhere, to making sure that we have those in there as well, called out separately again, so that we're not trying to shoehorn it into another thing. And also taking a look at special events. For that application process, you guys wouldn't know anything about special events here. To make sure that we understand what that application process is. It's not specific to any kind of, once the event has been approved, it's separate whatever you've required, if you need engines for standby or EMS or anything like that, it's separate from that event fee. That's more just the application process for me to say, this is the event that I want to have. And for you to provide feedback and conditions in order to do that event. So with that, we kind of get to the results. And I know that the detail is in the report, and there's, like I said, it was simplified before, we got a little more complex, so I didn't want to just bombard you with slide after slide after slide of numbers. But typically what we see is anywhere between 50 to 80% cost recovery for fire prevention fees. There are things that will fall below that, as well as above those ranges, depending on the type of service. So when we look at it, we kind of look at it by area. We do have some areas that are low, definitely lower, right? In that 20%, we've got the temporary operational permits, some of those hydrants for new construction, as well as the hydrant flow tests were significantly below what we would see for cost recovery. We also have some higher ones, the land use and entitlement applications, as well as the annual operating fire permits. So those are the ones that actually get pulled every year that we're doing. So when we look at this, we have some room for improvement, and I think some of this is because we were shoehorning things. And that's why we see this very cost recovery percentage when we look at that. But that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see how, where it is that you want to position yourself and how you want to get to that. And so really this kind of leads me to sum up all of this for what we're doing here, which is, how do you go about setting your fees, right? Because the next step of this is ideally adopting a new fee structure, but also taking a look at and adopting fees. And it's important to note that obviously anything that's set by the state or that is set by a local ordinance can't change. So even if we looked at what the cost of service was, it's just so that you guys could understand that. If it's set by the state or it's set by your ordinance, you can't increase those fees. You're bound by what that is. Some of the healthcare inspections, right? Those facility ones, they're set by the state. You guys get what you get, but they allow you to, but, you can't increase those fees, so those are kind of outside of this. And when we think about setting fees, we have to realize that anytime we set something at less than 100% cost recovery, there's another funding source that's offsetting that. And so typically here, the primary funding source would be like property taxes or something like that. So if we aren't charging that applicant the full cost, somebody else is covering that cost and is paying for that. So just to kind of keep that in mind. The other thing when we're setting policies, a policy is a guideline. So while we might say we want 80% or 90% cost recovery, that doesn't mean that every fee on the fee schedule needs to meet that. There are reasons that we set certain fees lower. In certain jurisdictions, we've seen prior work permits or burn permits, other things like that, where we will intentionally set that fee lower because we want people to come and pull that permit, right? We want compliance with that. And we'd rather subsidize that and get a little less money for that review and make sure that people are coming in and they're doing something, they're doing things appropriately. So to keep that in mind as well, that there are areas that we can target and we can say, generally speaking, our policy is this, but we're making exceptions for X, Y. And then finally, along with adopting a policy, it's really important that you continue to update your fees from year to year. You don't need to do a study like this from year to year. But if we adopt a policy, let's say at 80%, and then we just let our fees sit and we don't change them over the next 3 years, then we're no longer at 80%. So really kind of adopting a mechanism. So a lot of jurisdictions will use something like a CPI. You can use an internal COLA. We know every year staff get a 2% increase. We could increase our fees every year by 2% so that we can just maintain that level of cost recovery. That allows us again to update our fees annually, not do an intensive study like this, but still maintain the levels that we can put in place. So with that, I'll turn it over and see if you guys have questions.
Right, thank you very much. Question?
I was reading through this.
Before you begin, let me just make a quick note, that this is not an action item this evening, so we're gonna be discussing it, on recommendations.
One thing that jumped right out at me when I was looking through this is the current fee for new systems inspection for 10,000 1 feet to 20,000 feet. The total cost is 2,280. The current fee is $100. So that means it's being subsidized for $2,181 for a $100 fee. That's the one that kind of jumps out at me. We are a service organization. We're not here to make profit. On the other hand, as a taxpayer, it wouldn't go down very well with me if the developer was able to because this is dealing with commercial development, was getting a subsidy to several thousand%, and effectively I was paying for it.
No, and I think that's one of the difficulties
That's
too.
obviously, that's the most extreme one I can find.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those are the ones that we kind of want to pay attention to too, are those extreme ones. The ones that are only, off by, $10, $20, $30, not as big of an impact. And so some of these too, another thing to consider is, we don't have to go if we want 80%, 90%. We don't have to get there in a year. We can look at it and say, is there an impact to the community and should we take a year or two to get there, for example? So something like that would have a significant increase, taking a look at who would be impacted by that. Now, if it's a large developer, sorry, not much, not much sympathy for them, right? So because they can afford that, but if it's something that's going to impact, a mom and pop, the local deli down the street or something like that, maybe we want to consider phasing that in and letting them understand that those items will happen.
It's very interesting.
No, they can't use it.
Why would we not want to recover 90 to 100% of the fees? And I see where you're coming from as far as, like, in the first year, go 50%, then 40, maybe 10, or if it's 90%, we're going after, 50, then 40. But why wouldn't we go after 90 to 100% recovery? That's me. I mean, otherwise you'd be subsidizing everybody that's building.
Let me take a pass at, and this is discussion,
Sure.
You know, it seems to me that, cost recovery is kind of two-edged sword from us. If we have, first of all, as a percentage of our budget, these fees are minuscule. They are probably, I didn't figure out the percentage, Chief Fox, maybe you have it, we're talking about 1%.
It's about 124,000.
Yeah, out of a $14 million budget.
Right, so it's,
It's not, but here's the thing that kind of bothers me, and I have no answer to it, but we, assess the property tax on, citizens here. And I think that if people think for that property tax, we get a percentage of it, then we're gonna run a fire department. And we run it, if we had no fees at all, zero, we gave everything away free, everything would go on, nothing would really change, I believe, right now. Now, having said that, I believe we need to change the fees. I'm not trying to make a case for doing it without it, but the problem, but the really focusing on getting 100% somehow it strikes me as kind of not in the public's best interest. For example, the recommendations you made between the other areas around here, I would think it would be a badge of accomplishment if we were not the top recovery. That means that we're leaving money with our citizens. Now, again, I keep having said that, it sounds like I'm making a case for not, and I'm not. I have some suggestions later to do it. But in answer to your specific or reply to your question, that's where I'm coming from, Bruce.
okay,
Just with-
we're talking about it.
Exactly. But you-
Well, thank you so much for this presentation, very interesting, very nice. There is an area that you mentioned earlier in the presentation where we do actually, we're very interested in tracking the costs, and that's on false alarms. And it's not on the first or second false alarm, it's to the third and more on especially, commercial facilities, even if they're residential. So, and the whole point is as deterrent. It's not that we need the money, it is deterrent to false alarms. Because the false alarm causes other services to be compromised. And that's a tricky one because you get a response that has an engine and 3 people on it and a distance to travel, it's and all of that. So the fully loaded cost, I think, might be. I've never seen it, but it might be.
And that's something I think where you would, you probably have to change your code in order to change it. But I think, given what those amounts are currently, they definitely have a bigger stick. It's right now, it's, the drop in the bucket, especially for somebody to just, oh, I can just be paying this and not fix the problem.
And I'm not even sure that the bigger stick is the answer, but but the cost, I would like to know the cost, because that needs to be talked about and at least revealed. So that's an interesting bit of data. It would be an interesting discussion on this board to see, because you bring up the idea of what do we want to encourage? I think we want to encourage fireworks, but we might be interested in encouraging solar installations, for example, I don't know. Because it would give people an alternative energy option here on the coast side, because we lose so often, power. But the discussion would be, of this list of things, are there things that we want to, kind of in the same vein that Gary is saying, President Burke is saying, that we would want to encourage people to come and utilize those services?
So we give you an example, smoke detector inspection.
There you go.
That's something we would want people to do.
Right. So it might be a discussion of where do we want to provide permit relief, speed relief.
So
That's it.
you can, just add a couple of thoughts to, first of all, I think we need a policy to do that. Secondly, I think we need, that policy should have a CPI adjustment every 2 to 3 years, whatever that would be. Third, I think that policy should have because of the variety of things that we're dealing with, should have a proviso that says that the board is authorized to make any changes on either individuals or categories at any time. Because there may be something comes up that we need to make some changes in doing that. The other thing that somehow or other strikes me is that two items. One is that I would be more inclined, anything that is prevention, and a lot of this is prevention, I'd raise the prices, fees on it. I think that's appropriate. There may be some other things that are not fire prevention that we do that I would be less inclined to increase dramatically. No problem with that. But those are just a couple of thoughts. I've had a couple others, and I don't remember really the most at the moment. But the policy, those things that I mentioned. The other thing, as I looked at the matrix as you arrive at this, it seems to me that one of the things that would be mentioned, was missing in a formula, is the number of times that each one of those categories is used, each of those line items. You know, if it's used once a year versus 100 times a year, it would influence what I would view as where I would increase the money. And there's no indication of the usage in the formula that I'm aware of.
So we were not able to get workload essentially, and some of that is because, we significantly expanded the schedule, so we had a lot of things that were, lumped together in a particular category, so we weren't able to break that out. I think having, one of the benefits of having a more expanded fee schedule is better tracking for the types of services that you're providing and who you're providing.
But if there's some rough estimate or whatever it is on those lines items, it's just how often that is used, I think that would be enlightening to what just to set a price on it, if you will.
Yeah, and we can work with Patrick and the staff to do that.
Last thing that you mentioned, solar, and I'm not sure this is up to date yet, but some time ago, the city of Half Bay passed some kind of ordinance that says if you built new house that did so much construction, you had to go electric. So that if you were changing a water heater as a gas, you'd have to go to electric. And if that were the case, and it was only a $5,000, as I recall, $5,000 threshold, that would seem to me to be a whole new category for this community. And I just asked that, I don't look for an answer, but to see whether that's still the case, that there is an automatic change, because if there is, it should be included somehow in this fee schedule.
I think they may have backed off of that policy as an absolute requirement.
Okay.
I believe there was a ruling in Berkeley, it came up as an issue in Berkeley, and I think there's and Kyle might know more about this, there may be precedents for a legal challenge.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the update.
So just if I can interject here, one thing that Courtney brought up is this has really been led by Fire Marshal Patrick Griffin. He's been the lead on this. Unfortunately, he's can't be here in person. He is online if we have any questions for him, or if Chief Griffin, if there's anything you want to add to the context.
Chief Griffin, do you have comments or remarks?
I think Courtney really covered most of it, and I appreciate all the work she's done on this. Really being my first time going through it, she was able to help me navigate. I think going back to specifically, I know I can see the large percentage jumps, and when you look at the line items, you really see that on things we weren't necessarily identifying as assessing a fee towards before, that we didn't have that mechanism. So you'll see your larger percentage jumps within that fee schedule is going to be on things that we didn't have the mechanism to necessarily apply a fee or assess a fee towards. Specifically to the fire alarms, the fire alarm compounding fee came about with some frequent flyers we have within the district, and this is more to encourage the property owner to fix a life safety system that is out of service in a timely manner. Based on the fees we have right now, we've come to learn that they'd rather just pay the fee than maybe assess or address the issues. So we're trying to encourage those property owners to fix these problems to mitigate our engines responding to calls of no merit within the district. And then lastly, with the solar, for a while there, we didn't necessarily have purview on solar based on state Senate bills and stuff like that. And that's kind of come back around again as far as its expedited plan review and everything else. For us, we're not conducting plan reviews based on, I forget what the Senate bill was that went into effect this year, but the only time we get eyes on these projects now is based on the inspection. So we wouldn't necessarily, unless it's over a certain threshold of kilowatt, we don't assess a fee to a plan review because they don't even come across our desk. So really it's to apply the life safety portion for the first responders responding to these houses in the event of an emergency, a structure fire, etc. And for anyone else there. That's kind of where that comes from for context. I'm available if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, or any questions?
Not for you, Chief Griffin, thank you. Hope you're feeling better. We are, as a community, about to, I believe, see a lot of multi-unit housing. I'm aware of maybe 10 different developments that are in the planning stages. How do you see that affecting these rates? So will it mean that we are going to be seeing a great deal more of particular, of course, the plan checking and everything else and inspections? Does that affect the rate setting for this?
I wouldn't say it affects the rate setting, because it's based on the way that we calculate this is the bottom up approach. So rather than kind of taking your costs and allocating them to the different areas, we look at on a unit by unit, what does it take? So even if you needed to get an additional fire prevention engineer or inspector to provide that service, assuming that they aren't, dramatically, compensated more than the staff that you currently have, it wouldn't have an impact to your overall cost of service. I think where you're gonna see the impact is that, those folks that are in the field and at the desk reviewing those plans are gonna be busier. And there could be the need, potentially to augment that staff. I mean, I don't see a continued boom, right? It's gonna be kind of this one time, it's gonna go up and then it's gonna go down. But what will happen is some of those annual operational permits we might see more of those because we'll need to go out and look at those locations annually once we can build it.
Thank you.
One, if I can interject here, kind of hit on a couple points. One thing that's really important that our office in the fire prevention world really deals with is the special event permits that become more pervasive. I think if you were to put the amount of time that the office put into just the pumpkin festival, there's probably 4 or 5 pre-meetings before the event, right? There's plans being formulated, there's an event permit review, there's making sure that they have standby folks in place to meet the fire code requirements. And although we fully are supporting being a good partner in public safety for these large events, it does currently come at a cost to the district. And that is captured in here as well as an updated standby time. So if an event requires a fire engine to be there, and it's not uncommon for a TV show to be filming on a beach and require fire standby, the district wouldn't feel the burden of that show's production, it would be passed along.
Look, let me, first of all, thank you for the comment. So we're assuming there's no other questions or comments. I would like to ask Chief that we begin the process of putting together a policy. And hopefully include a couple of things that I mentioned a little bit earlier to do that. And also take another look at the distribution of the costs. And again, it seems to me that the quantity of usage of a particular one is a factor. And things like you mentioned with the pumpkin festival, and probably there are other things like that should be taken into consideration. And at some point, a recommendation, and maybe it's a change in some of the dollars and cents that Matrix has presented, but this is flexible. It's our choice to do that, and we'll do it. And then I would hope that whether it's next month or at some date when it's appropriate, come back with the basic of a draft policy to include pricing.
If I could just ask one question to clarify, Chief Cox.
You're good, go.
For something like Pumpkin Festival, does 218 and 26 mean you can't overall, as a total, charge more than it costs? So that, or is it incremental? Is it line by line?
I would say it's more like, so like for the application process, right? generally speaking, because a little bit the event might fall under some of the exceptions, which are kind of like, you know, you could have the pumpkin festival somewhere else, right? So you have that, right, if I wanna build if I wanna build my house or I wanna build that, right, I'm building it here, and so the rules and the regulations that apply in there are critical to me. And honestly, the biggest portion of the cost associated with the pumpkin festival is probably more about, the guys on the trucks and the trucks and the engines and the ambulances that are doing that, and less, and not to discount all of the work that the prevention staff are doing to lead up to that. But I think that probably the bulk of the cost associated with that is actually what data, you know, of those events have.
So we can't charge anyone for pumpkin festival services, right?
So we can charge for any additional staffing that we dedicate to the event. So if we staff an engine and we dedicate that to the event, we can charge for those services, or a battalion chief who's in the command post of the sheriff's office.
Who pays, the city or the county?
It would be the event organizer.
I see, so out of their proceeds.
Supposing an engine is staffed with volunteers.
There would be no pass along cost for volunteers, it would only be for career staff.
Bruce?
So I like the idea of keeping the fees down for like smoke detectors, something that's gonna aid our citizens. And I'll back off my 90 to 100% recovery to 70 or 80 for talking purposes.
Well, it's been a good discussion, and I think we've got some direction, and again, thank you, Courtney, for the update, and
Yeah,
look forward
nice
to
job.
having a draft at some. Director Hannah, did you have a comment? I'm sorry. Anyway, look forward to a draft policy and with some figures on it, in the near future.
Perfect. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving back to the agenda, the chairman board meeting is scheduled for November, and December, Chief Cox.
Correct, the board meetings, traditionally, we have canceled the December, I believe the November one is falling on the week of Thanksgiving this year. If I could make a recommendation, it would be, we have a finance committee meeting scheduled for November 15th. At the very least, that we have a meeting on the 15th.
Second. Moved and seconded.
Huh?
Yeah, there's a number of things that I think could come up for the November meeting, so I think having a meeting is certainly wise to do, but the 15th sounds like a good date as far as I'm concerned. Any question? All in favor of having a special meeting on November 15th? I think we have to do Kai.
I actually don't think you need to do a vote on that.
We'll schedule a special meeting on November 15th, preceded by a finance committee meeting at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, President Burke. And just to follow up, December is also, the fourth Wednesday in December is December 27th. Just wanted the board's feeling about the need, and if so, a date for December.
My feeling is it depends on what we accomplish on November 15th. If we were, can we do it on the 15th of November?
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
wait till the 15th.
We push as much stuff in the 15th, and if then sometime before the middle of December, if something big comes up, the board has to get involved and call a
Yeah.
special meeting.
Yeah.
Great.
Excuse me.
Okay, so we're all set for November 15th.
Yes.
All right, very good. Moving on to board directors and chief report. Finance committee, we did not have a meeting, but in our packet for public consumption, of course, is the spreadsheet of all our expenses and revenues for the year to date. There's nothing for the 3 months that we're into the new year. I just note a couple of items. We received ERAF funding of $828,000, and if you remember a year ago, that was always in question. We have a $2 million operating reserve, and we have $13.6 million in our lake fund, primarily for the new station 44. Anything that you wanted to?
Nothing.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. Moving on to the volunteer committee, Director Cockrell, Director Hannah.
I attended the volunteer meeting traffic, jump in any time you want. There's a lengthy discussion of staffing, and we talked about some of the volunteers in the staffing engine 640, for example. There was a rather lengthy discussion about stuff they're selling. One of the things that did come up is the old pagers will be given to the new volunteers. So they will have pagers, which is good. I'm not gonna go into great detail about the stuff they're selling, aprons and t-shirts. They did discuss the training for firefighter 1 certification. And they're gonna have an academy graduation soon. And they're working on a roster for the current volunteers. One of the volunteers, a fellow by the name of Brian, passed engineer 1, passed the ground, which is good. One of the things that I found interesting, and maybe the board discussed it and I missed it, but the depth of training that the paramedics get, 160, for example, 160 hours in the hospital. Writing the ambulance under 480 is 720 hours, followed by the ride-alongs. It seems to me that that's pretty decent training. So whoever comes out of that program is definitely going to have a clue. Maybe it was already discussed, but I was asleep, I don't know. There was a discussion of some incidents that they had responded to, a grass fire and a structure fire in Montana, which I was amazed. I never saw the word one about it in the Capital Bay Review. You know, it was a very large structure fire. And that's the extent of it.
Patrick, did you have anything to add?
I believe Director Cockrell covered most of the things that I would have chimed up about. Yeah, they attended that structure fire up in Montera, and really nothing further at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Moving on to land and structures report, Director McKinney, Director Cheryl.
Land and structures, we have a good meeting with the architects, Zoom meeting. Everything seems to be on track, although it's a quiet period. We're waiting for a response from the plan review folks at the county. There are multiple different agencies that are reviewing our plans or will be reviewing our plans, and so we're waiting at this time. There's nothing that is a known problem. It's just a matter of time passing.
Yeah.
There were a couple of we discussed the issue of where's the fence line, and we discussed a couple of other things, but really there's no deal breaker at this stage. We're just, passive mode. They are on schedule. We're just waiting for the plan checks, for the first plan reviews.
When we have a date for the next public meeting?
Not at this time. I think I need to wait and see if the county wants to have us change anything on facilities, buildings, lighting, etc. So until we really get information from the planning department, we don't want to set a community meeting because we may have to change things. We want to make sure the county's on board with everything that we presented to them, and that there's no changes, and we can schedule that. If they have changes, then we'll have to go to the drawing board on a few items, and then we could resubmit to the county, wait 30 days again, and go from there. So it's kind of a sit and wait.
Bruce, did you have anything?
No.
Okay, thank you. Vegetation management, Director Cockrell and Hamilton.
I don't have anything to add.
Nothing from me to add. Thank you.
Moving on, Special District Association, Director Hannah.
Nothing currently to add in regards to Special District Association. Thank you.
Moving on to ALS-JPA, there was no meeting, but I mentioned this, I believe, last meeting, that there's a group of cities and special districts that have formed a special ad hoc committee to discuss the fee increases that the county is talking about for the dispatch center. And attended one meeting, and I know the ad hoc committee was going to meet further with the county. I have not heard back. I'm not sure what that is. If there's any further information on that. I don't think they're actively meeting now. Okay, yeah. It's interesting. This is a quick aside of that, is that the county is using the term cost recovery to to vote their fee increase on the dispatch. Now that's interesting when they have, what is it, 90 million or 190 million surplus. Still trying to do full cost recovery, which is an increase to us. Sure. Increase to us. It's kind of an interesting financial and political issue, but it's pending as of the current status of it. No further action. Emergency preparedness report. Do we have it? Chief Cosgrove?
He is not on, I have notes from him. Though.
Oh,
He cannot
please go ahead.
Tonight. The county participated in the Great Shakeout on October 19th. Next year it will be on October 17th. Projects ongoing are the all hazards evacuation plan that DEM is working on. The continuance of operations template plan that will expand to the operational area partners. They're also working on a few after action reports and several UWASI exercises and trainings being planned for 2024, including a supply chain tabletop exercise, stop the bleed classes, and some grant opportunities for the region. And finally, they will start recruitment for 4 emergency managers soon. And the new director of DEM has also begun.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on, CERT report, Director Cheryl.
Coastside CERT wishes to thank the Coastside Fire Protection District and, in particular, and Cal Fire for their support of our upcoming fall CERT exercise. It's going to be starting a week from today here in this room for the 3 in-person classroom instruction series that then will culminate in a training day and graduation on November 11th. The November 11th combines the in-person with the folks that have finished the online work, and they will be here for a full day. That's 43 of them, plus 39 other existing CERTs who are going to come to support their success, plus the professional and volunteer firefighters who are coming to support that day as well. So we are very grateful for that support. Thank you. We also met with Chief Cox on the SOPs and Chief Silva on our standard operating procedures, which are in a draft phase. We probably have a November iteration and then possibly in December, and then the final draft will be due in January.
Okay.
So then in the report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Attorney's report.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Very good. Fire Marshal's report. Chief Griffin.
Yes, good evening. Okay, so we had 37 plan reviews for the month of September, along with 26 construction inspections, and we are moving forward with completing our annual mandatory inspections. End of report.
That's it? Yeah. Okay. Just ceased all of this. All right, moving on. Fire Chief report. Chief Cox, Chief Armstrong.
Yeah. I'll start. First, just want to draw attention. We had a meeting. We were notified by the county, Department of Public Works Airport Division, that they, in about 6 months, will no longer be providing any fire protection on the airport itself at the airport. Currently, they have operations staff who are trained to do basic aircraft firefighting with the equipment they have at the airport, a small vehicle. They are reclassifying the positions and changing their organizational structure and actually removing the aircraft firefighting operations from their area of responsibility. That for us, obviously, is a major concern, just because we are the fire protection district and anything related to fire is of highest priority. In investigating it a little bit more, and Director Cockrell is probably aware of this, the FAA does not have requirements for an on-site fire protection for that classification of airport. So there is nothing legally that binds them to have what's called fire protection at the airport. The issue that they've encountered is they don't have the gear for their staff to actually fight those types of fires, nor do they have the kind of annual training to utilize to fight those. And their SOP is really to wait till our crews get on scene to initiate the fire attack. We did start a conversation with them about what the future looks like. Currently, we store foam in one of their hangars, aircraft firefighting foam, the environmentally friendly kind, because I know that's a big topic. And we have initiated a conversation with them to actually request that when they surplus the current fire vehicle they have there, they consider transferring ownership to the Coastside Fire Protection District for us to utilize for responses on the airport. They don't know if that's even possible, but that was the request that we made, was that if there is going to be a decreased service there, that we actually have the ability to provide that service in an ongoing manner. So we'll see what they come back with. This is still probably 6 months out. I'll keep everyone abreast with it. Our battalion chiefs, as well as our training staff, are already aware of this and the implications that will probably come with adding some sort of aircraft firefighting training every year into our training schedule. Just a recognition that although they'll still have operational folks available to respond, to assist with opening gates and providing layouts and whatnot, that the primary firefighting responsibility will be on the district when they along for that message. I had a meeting with Public Safety Communications and the ALS JPA Raven Technology, who's the actual technology company who built the repeaters for the county. As we've discussed before, we have been working on a coast radio build out, essentially getting a new command channel, Command 41, which is only in Half Moon Bay right now, built out to the entire South Coast and up Pacifica. And we came to an agreement with PSC this last week about what that radio architecture looks like and what would work best for the system. So that's an ongoing project, but a big one that we want to get pushed over the line just for operability sense. We've also been working with the deputy chiefs and PSC across the county for a response code type change. It's a mouthful. We will be eliminating the boat in distress call type from our responses and replacing it with the water rescue investigation call type. And call types are not something that are individual to an agency, they're countywide, so everyone has to be on the same page. It's very difficult for a person calling 911 to discern between a boat in distress versus is there someone who needs help. So instead of defaulting to a boat in distress, we'll be defaulting to a water rescue investigation that gets a response that includes an ambulance until we can determine if that boat is just in distress and needs a tow or if there's an actual rescue that's going to occur. So that type of code change has gone into place, and we haven't seen many impacts of it yet. I think there's been a couple calls. The volunteers in paramedic school continue to succeed. They're working on the placements of their field internships to get that time on the ambulance. We did have a structure fire on Alamo Street in Montera. You probably all saw the letter that was sent out to a concerned citizen. Just want to kind of reiterate the response times for that. The crews were there in just over 7 minutes for a location that is fairly remote. If there's any additional questions, please direct them my way. The Coastside also assisted, the Coastside volunteers assisted with a prescribed burn down in Pomponio Ranch, which is in the Pescador area. They also responded to a vegetation fire down in Lomond. As far as training, completed the 1 week driver operator 1A class. And for the first time, the training staff here put on the first Ag ID training in the county. So the Ag ID program is for agricultural producers to have a pass to get through evacuation zones to tend to their agricultural products. This is state legislation that has come down to the county. As far as I know, we're one of the first to actually implement it on the county level. And hats off to Chief Lord and his staff for actually putting on the training. We got some good feedback. It's something that we want to make sure we're training those ag producers to be safe when they do go behind the lines, when they tend to those things. As far as facilities are concerned, Chief Silva has a growing list of facilities projects that are taking up his time. The fencing project continues here at Station 40. It's starting to look nice. You'll probably see that they're actually, as they build, they're installing the fencing, and then the landscapers coming behind and making sure the landscaping is finished as it goes in as well. We did not have any bids for the installation in the apparatus bay. We met with a vendor last week who's gonna actually, replace the insulation here with, a more permanent foam installation and get rid of the panel that's in there. And then we're starting on some, minor bathroom fixes here at Station 40 that have been long overdue. On the Station 41 South lot, we had a follow-up conversation with Kendra and her team at RHAA. They have engaged a civil engineer to get the final set of drawings. We've requested a set of construction drawings now that we're through the preliminary design, with the inclusion of the remarks from the last board meeting that include the sidewalk, the sitting area, as well as some sort of meandering path with fire safe plants that have labels so people can see what fire safe landscaping looks like. So those plans should be forthcoming. She's pretty adamant that they can get those construction plans with the civil engineer completed by the end of the year. So hopefully in January we'll have them back in front of us.
Chief, can I ask you on that, the sidewalk,
Yes.
are they gonna pursue the county getting approval of the sidewalk?
They will, yes. They will assist with the permitting process and the encroachment permits that need to be pulled. And they also offer the service to be the construction administrator overseeing the contractor for the actual installation as well.
But as I understand, before anybody can do a sidewalk, the county has to approve, it, right?
Correct. They will submit the applications for permitting, for encroachment and permitting for the sidewalk. And as far as apparatus goes, you see that the new ERV 40 is finally in service. A long process, but a very nice piece of equipment. The Type 3 is still in line to be built, as well as the new Type 1 engine. The new battalion chief vehicle is being outfitted and the fire marshal vehicle has been completed. So hence why the surplus has continued. With that, happy to answer any questions. That's what we're keep on.
Of that,
Who have we been dealing with at the airport?
I have to get the name. It's the supervisor for their operations.
So Mike Burns, is that anybody?
No, it's someone out of Redwood City, at their Department of Public Works.
Oh. Yeah, I just kind of, obviously, more than passively interested in that subject. The pickups they have really aren't pickups, they are small scale fire engines like that, I'll just see, we're not, they actually have a remotely operated, phone dispenser.
Yeah.
That can be operated from the cab. So, but the reality is that airport is not staffed 24/7.
Right.
It's only staffed during normal business hours. So if you have a crash between the hours of 8 and 5, you'd be okay. But if you have it at 8 o'clock at night, well then it can be us.
Yeah.
And so assuming we would have access to that phone rig, they do have a phone rig.
Yeah, they do.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Will we be paid for providing those services to the airport by some public authority?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have an answer on that. I can investigate that a little bit further. They're also doing the same at San Carlos Airport, and not providing the 8 to 5 coverage of peripheral duties for that operations person on site. So I'll definitely engage with our partners over at Redwood City and see what their plan is and their position is, and see. I think if I had to venture to guess, the airports that I've worked in the past that have required it, down in San Luis Obispo is a good example. It's a station that the county operates under contract with CAL FIRE. Because they're under FAA, whatever, Part 106 or the exact classification for that
I
airport.
was gonna say it's a different classification.
Yeah, they have, more than 9 flights with more than 9 people, whatever it is. The airport actually pays for that fire protection there, but that requirement is not here. They are not required to have dedicated ARP services at this airport.
Chief Silver, did you have anything? Let me just touch on a couple of things that I hope we don't lose sight of when we soon an action on. And one of them is, the status of 41 lease. I'm not gonna go into it, but I'm anxious to see that resolved, and I'm sure we all want to see that being done to do it. The second one is that I think there's some work being done, I believe, by Kai in terms of the CalPERS miscellaneous. And we're still waiting to see that, come back to, if you will. And I think the board now is caught up on our requirements for district of distinction.
Correct. This week, I think we finished our
Oh,
last class.
so we were done before you?
I was done.
I was supposed to be with you guys in Monterey and had a last minute conflict, so I get to.
So we could look forward to submitting our papers. Okay, yeah. Glad you're able to make it. Oh.
You, to the class?
That's good, that's good. I wanted to, oh, the other, just completely out of the blue, I was looking at some old things. One thing I haven't seen on any of our agenda is the approval of the community special districts, service districts.
That, yeah, I think that's in May, we do that.
We did, okay.
Yeah.
All of those things you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do them on one big batch with like 30 items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? About objections, we are adjourned. Thank you. You're right, I do remember doing it all in one.
So I heard, what you guys.